To go before the start of the Australian Formula One Grand Prix. And Alan, when you get to this point of time, it's you get the tension and you do really get the feeling that this is a fairly dangerous little sport.
There's a real buzz, that's for sure. There's an electrifying atmosphere going right. I mean, it's certainly here in the commentary box, it's out in the grandstands, and this is all part of Grand Prix racing. It's the colour, the excitement, the danger. It's all rolled up now into these last few remaining minutes before the green light goes on.
When you hear the roar of those engines revving up, ready to go, just wanting to release themselves off the grid, I mean, it's overpowering.
It is. In fact, I think it's even more thrilling in a certain way for people standing or sitting next to the cars than it is for the drivers. The drivers are in their own little cocoon, they've got earplugs, they're concentrating on the revs of their own engine, and they're preoccupied with that. But certainly when you're in the audience, it's very, very exciting.
Well, you got Villeneuve, of course, Frenzen, who made that terrific last-minute dash yesterday to get into second pole. Schumacher, Coulthard, Irvine, Hakkinen. The top six on the grid for the Formula One Grand Prix of 1997, round one. And all important. They say if you get off to a good start, I guess it's like a lot of sports, you make an impact in the very first event, then you're off and running.
Particularly on a circuit like this, Ken, it's a street circuit, although this one does have quite a few overtaking places on it, which is unusual in modern-day Grand Prix circuits. But certainly, if you can get past 2 or 3 cars in that opening lap, that saves you an awful lot of time during the course of the race. Sometimes, once the race gets all settled down, it can take you 20 laps to get past somebody.
Haven't they had their problems, Benetton, this weekend?
Yeah, well, they certainly have. I mean, they were reportedly very quick in the off-season testing, but they haven't shown that form here, that's for sure. Now, this is
Alain Prost involved in this team, of course.
Yep. Well, this is a team with a lot of promise, and not that it's now going to rain. I'd be very surprised indeed if it does. But if it does, this is one car and one driver and tyre combination which will really shine.
And looking forward to getting the new engine into it a little later on too, which Prost says will really make it competitive.
Oh, there's no doubt about that.
And of course, being he such a methodical man and such a great driver, great with mechanics, he'll have this team really singing.
It's interesting to note, he said yesterday or the day before, this was the hardest thing he's done in Formula One, but I doubt that.
Well, there they are roaring, they are ready to go, they've got their foot on the accelerator, with the green light ready to go here at Albert Park. Let's join the voice of Formula One, the one and only, Murray Walker. Let's go for 1997, the Australian Grand Prix.
So, away they go on the parade lap. How is it, Martin?
Well, finally, the track suddenly looks big enough. All of those people that were surrounding the cars and the mechanics, tyres, jacks, trolleys, the track looks amazingly small. They all clear at the last minute, and you suddenly feel you have some space around you ready for your start. You've already worked out who's around you on the grid, who's in front of you, if you think you can overtake him, is he a good starter? Can you outbrake him into the first corner? You don't have too much of a strategic plan. You have to think on your feet because these things take off. A guy starting in 10th place on the grid will be doing well over 100 miles an hour by the time he passes pole position. So, you know, you have to really work on your reflexes, but you will have a basic plan in your head as you're now going around on the warm-up lap. And what they'll be doing on this warm-up lap is keeping the tyres up to temperature as much as possible. Otherwise, they lose pressure, which is very critical. It's a big part of the suspension of the car. As much movement is in the tyres as in the actual suspension itself. Is that a problem for Damon Hill?
Oh, Damon Hill is pulling off. He started from 20th on the grid after a very torrid time in qualifying and the preceding sessions, and it looks as though he is not even going to start the Australian Grand Prix. Yeah, oh, Damon out. Well, my goodness, Damon Hill retires before the race even starts. Out comes the steering wheel, and this is a bitter blow for the man who won last year's race and the World Championship in such brilliant form. Damon's been very phlegmatic about his problems this year with the new Arrows team, and it is an entirely new team. They've had a hatful of problems, to put it very mildly indeed.
Well, this is all part of the roller coaster ride of being a Grand Prix driver. But here's something significant for me. Damon is helping these guys get the car off of the track. He's not walking away from it, throwing his helmet around, throwing his gloves around. He is committed to that team. He's chosen that team, and everybody within the team is impressed with. He's a brick, as somebody put it this morning, in the way that he's really getting behind the team, and I think that's clearly demonstrated there.
some consolation to Arrows, but not much, is the fact that Pedro Diniz, who got onto the grid by a special dispensation yesterday, is at least starting. So they come through to complete the parade lap. There is Olivier Parnis, followed by Jean Alesi, Mika Hakkinen. The top driver in the Jordan team is Ralf Schumacher, but that is Giancarlo Fisichella, the young Italian. And so now lining up on the grid, to the right is Jacques Villeneuve. To the left, as you looked at it, was Heinz Harald Frentzen. It's a 58-lap race. And there is Coulthard slotting into position behind David Coulthard. There is the Benetton. There are the two Jordans, Ralf Schumacher and Giancarlo Fisichella.
They're moving over at the last possible moment, the guys on their right-hand side of the grid, because they don't want to run along the dirty side of the track. The tyres are sticky, they're melted rubber basically, and they will pick up the dirt, and they need as much rear grip as they can get.
So the heat haze arising from the 700 horsepower engines. 21 cars down there, and when the last light goes on, they will all go out, and it is go. It's go now for Australia 97, and Heinz Harald Frentzen gets ahead of Jacques Villeneuve. There is a surprise. Frentzen takes the lead, and Eddie Irvine goes across, and out goes one of the Salvers. It must have been Johnny Herbert. There was a coming together, but it is Johnny Herbert and Villeneuve out of the race at the beginning. An amazing happening. First of all, Damon Hill goes out. Then Jacques Villeneuve has a coming together and is out of the Australian Grand Prix, and up into second place in the McLaren Mercedes, it is David Coulthard. So Frentzen leads, Coulthard second, Irvine is third, Hakkinen is fourth, the two Benettons fifth and sixth, Parnis is in seventh position, and Nicola Larini in the second Sauber is in 8th place. Now this is a heaven-sent opportunity for Heinz Harald Frentzen. Replay.
Yes, I think what happens is that Villeneuve had a very poor start and got surprised by Schumacher into the first corner, coming up his inside, and he really did get smothered and just didn't know which way to go.
Well, now, Heinz Harald Frentzen, who has been having a psychological battle with Villeneuve in the approaches to the Australian Grand Prix, is certainly on a winning streak now. Frentzen qualified for the Australian Grand Prix higher than he has ever qualified before. In his entire career, he has had 1/3 place, and he's in line for a win now if he can keep the Williams going, but he's still got 57 laps to go, and there's action behind him because, and that, my goodness, out goes Eddie Irvine. So retirements, Villeneuve is out, and there is Eddie Irvine. So there's decimation already with Damon Hill out as well.
Maybe it was Irvine into the first corner up the inside of Villeneuve because he had a left front puncture there, and I suspect damage to the left front suspension. It's very weak in any area other than its loaded area when it's working on the car.
So now all will be calm in the Williams pit as far as Frentzen's area is concerned. Far from it for Jacques Villeneuve, who was looking for points here in the World Championship. And there is Eddie Irvine. This is a replay of the Ferrari of Eddie. You see him looking at the front wheel, and you can see that it is towed in. You can see that the tyre is running not flat, but deflated. Eddie locks it up and goes off the course. So out of the race, right at the very start, is one of the Ferraris, the man who finished third last year. You look at David Coulthard. And there is the McLaren with the Mercedes V10 engine designed and built at Brixworth in, and another retirement. It's Ralf Schumacher. My goodness, they're going out like flies at the beginning of the Australian Grand Prix. Ralf Schumacher out. Can't see what the problem is. He had a lot of spins yesterday, but the car looked all right.
Absolutely. I suspect Ralph, who was in a poor grid position compared to the speed of his car, I suspect he's trying too hard, too early. It's his first Grand Prix, remember, and I suspect we're going to see a replay with a bit of luck of Ralph spinning off the road, because I can't see any other reason.
Well, now look at the lead that Heinz Harald Frentzen has built up. Now, the German last year, in fact, the whole of his Formula One career has been in the Sauber team. He's driven in 48 Grand Prix, and he started for Sauber in 1994. Now, that was not a winning team for all sorts of reasons. New team, new engine. It started with Mercedes, and then it switched to Ford, and Sauber have now got the Ferrari engine. But Heinz-Harald Frentzen got his chance when Frank Williams, rightly or wrongly, dependent on your point of view, decided that he was going to dispose of the services of Damon Hill and take on Frentzen. A lot of people suspect that he actually did that in 1995, and there is the gap. There is Coulthard. Behind Coulthard is Schumacher. Now, what we don't know, Martin, is whether the Williams and the McLaren and the Ferrari have got the same tyre compound. It may make a difference, but Schumacher's brilliance can more than compensate for any inadequacies of the Ferrari.
Well, I'm expecting Schumacher to be stronger towards the end of this stint, and he may even just be trying to do a one-stop strategy. He ran both in the warm-up this morning, if you look at his times and his straight line speed, but of course you don't know which one he's finally chosen. They wouldn't want to divulge that information.
Louise Goodman in the pit lane could tell us what happened. And off, there's a major off there. It's Verstappen. Jos Verstappen in the Tyrrell. A gigantic hurdle over the curb into the gravel trap. Leapt over it, landed on the gravel, stopped before he hit the wall, and looked to me as though he's perfectly all right. Here's a replay. You see he spins. He probably had a touch with somebody. And no contact as far as I can see.
I suspect he lost it on the left-hander on the way in and stuck his left rear wheel on the grass, by the looks of it. He was out of control before he ever arrived at that corner. It's easy to do there. It's a bit of no man's land with two curbs for apexes, and your eye is distracted to the right, and your left wheels can just go onto the grass verge.
Well, Ralf Schumacher out, Eddie Irvine out, Damon Hill out, Jos Verstappen out, and the battle as on goes Shinji Nakano. That is the newcomer from Japan in the Prost team. Remember that word Prost? We used to say Ligier, but not anymore. It's a Prost.
I mean, what is going on? Is this the first day back at school or what? I mean, everybody's all over the place. What on earth? They just need to calm down. There's a long way to go.
Yeah, and here's a replay of Nakano going off. And meantime, up at the front, Heinz-Harald Frentzen will be pacing himself shortly. But behind him, there is a battle, and there it is. Coulthard second. Michael Schumacher, you're looking at the leader now. Michael Schumacher is in third place. Mika Häkkinen is in fourth place. So the two McLaren Mercedes are in second and fourth places. And they're looking good, frankly. The new McLaren is a much better car, but the new Williams, there it is even better. Now Heinz-Harald has got a very convincing lead as he goes round the Marina turn into Lakeside Drive, on towards the Clark chicane. Now going to start bearing left, and the speed will build up to 175 miles an hour. You can see the gap, an enormous area of track between him, and we're riding now with Heinz-Harald Frentzen.
Well, this is the first time Heinz-Harald has seen a clear track in front of him in a Grand Prix car, and the pressure will be on. If he keeps it smooth, I think he'll just relax now and let the car do the work. He's walking away from the McLaren, and it all seems very easy. I suspect he may actually be on a different fuel stop strategy. We're missing here in the commentary box, which means that they're missing in the pit lane all of the computer information that the teams use, as we do, to understand the strategy of the race, to understand which performance which car has and when they're going to make their stops. We're missing all of that. First time I've ever seen that. But so the teams are in the same position as us here in the commentary box.
But here is the race order. It is Heinz-Harald Frentzen in the lead, followed by David Coulthard. In third position, it's Michael Schumacher, and in fourth place, it is Mika Häkkinen. In sixth position is Jean Alesi in the Benetton, followed by his teammate in seventh place, Gerhard Berger. And then after Berger, it is Olivier Panis. Now he's the top Bridgestone runner in the cross, and he is in 8th position. Then behind Parnis, who is number 14 on the car, is Nicola Larini. So Johnny Herbert out at the beginning of the race, but his teammate Nicola Larini is doing his best. And he's in the Sauber with the Petronas engine, and he's returned to Grand Prix racing, having been a driver for Ferrari in testing for a long time and occasionally in racing. He was second in that dreadful race at Imola, the San Marino Grand Prix in 1994. And now you can see as you look down on the approach to turn 8 that David Coulthard is keeping Michael Schumacher in the Ferrari behind him. And in the same way, Michael Schumacher is keeping Mika Häkkinen behind him. And then we see, or rather we don't see, but I promise you that he's there, Jean Alesi in the Benetton. And here's a replay of the start. Now let's see if we can see what happened. Heinz-Harald Frentzen goes into the lead. There's Villeneuve being sandwiched by Herbert and Irvine. And Herbert is harpooned by Jacques Villeneuve's car. Now, Martin, it's always very, very difficult, if not impossible, to apportion blame when you weren't in the cockpit, but how did it look to you?
Well, Irvine had a great start and went down the inside, so initially he's the one that's instigated the incident, but it's not his fault at all. Villeneuve was asleep, probably still panicking from his poor start, and Irv coming down the inside pushed Villeneuve across, and he ran into Johnny, and in fact it took all three of them out of the race. They need a slap for it, and I can assure you in the next briefing in Brazil for the next Grand Prix they will have one.
Lap 7 out of 58. Heinz-Harald Frentzen is the fastest man on the track. He's gone round in 1 minute 32.56, and he leads Coulthard by 10.5 seconds. And Damon Hill is down in the pit lane with Louise Goodman.
Damon, a bit of disappointment for you so early in the race. Do you know what happened there?
Well, I lost my throttle. I don't know what happened to cause that, but basically I couldn't accelerate, so I had to park.
Thanks.
Very disappointing.
There is Frentzen. I was giving you the order. We're on lap 8 now. He leads.
It's a shame we didn't get a chance to show that in the race.
You wanted to start the championship in another way, for sure.
Well, I'd like to have qualified better and also completed the race, you know, but we're not going to... We'll have to go away and do a lot more testing.
Well, a phlegmatic and resigned Damon Hill. There is no point in throwing your helmet in the air and getting agitated about it.
Just to explain what Damon means by lost his throttle, there's no cable on the throttle, it's fly-by-wire as an aeroplane. It's a little potentiometer and it's electrically operated, so it's an electrical problem as such, not a throttle pedal or throttle cable problem or anything on the engine hinge.
Deep breath, take it calmly, race order, lap 8. Heinz-Harald Frentzen leads the battle that you're looking at between David Coulthard and Michael Schumacher for second place by 12 massive, gigantic, enormous seconds on lap 8. That is a big, big lead. Mika Häkkinen is in 4th place and he's just 2 seconds behind this battle that you are looking at. In 5th position is Jean Alesi, 6th position is Gerhard Berger, 7th is Parnis, 8th is Larini, 9th is Barrichello, 10th is Fisichella, 11th is Magnussen, and 12th is Katayama.
Okay, welcome back to the Qantas Australian Formula One Grand Prix, and after 9 laps we have Harold Frentzen leading very easily from Coulthard, Schumacher, Häkkinen, Alesi and Berger. All right, we're now going to have a look at the restart. Now, as you see, Eddie Irvine does a blinding start from way back there. He's coming down the inside, a terrific start, probably gets a too little overzealous, and you can just see him now he starts to lock up. He realises he's going in a little bit too big. He's well locked up, totally committed, and in doing so runs wide and forces Villeneuve off into Herbert. So that's a very unfortunate situation, and I proportion most of the blame of that onto Eddie Irvine. It is one of those racing accidents and it will happen, but he went in there far too deep, locked up his brakes, lost his steering, slid wide, and there's the consequence there. All right, let's go back now to Murray.
are all on Goodyear tyres, and the top Bridgestone runner is Olivier Parnis, as he mostly was in qualifying and in the pre-practice sessions. But the FW19 Williams with the new RS9 Renault engine is, as we expected, proving to be the class of the field. It's Renault's last official year in Grand Prix racing. They've had a gigantic amount of success. Coulthard and Schumacher fighting for second position. And Renault are determined to build on that success and go out this year with 2 more championships. The Driver Championship and the Constructors Championship. And if things go on for the rest of the season as they've gone so far, it looks as though they're going to do just that. Now, there's Schumacher. One is tempted sometimes to say that he might be playing a waiting game, but that is nonsense, because what he wants to do, obviously, is to get past Coulthard and hopefully get to grips with Frentzen. And he's now 17 seconds behind the Williams. It's all go in the pit lane, and Louise Goodman is now with retiree, a very disappointed retiree, Johnny Herbert.
Johnny, what happened to you at the start there?
Well, I had a really good start, absolutely. I was passing everybody. I got past Michael and Eddie, and I was actually just passing Jack. And as we come into the corner, he was being pushed, which I think was Eddie was giving him a push, so he couldn't stop. So as I could see that he was having trouble. And then as I tried to go around the corner, obviously Eddie pushing him so fast that he couldn't stop, so he hit me, and then our wheels entangled, and that was it. But it's been a promising weekend generally. It's just a shame it ended in that fashion again.
You qualified so well, I mean, you must be bitterly disappointed about that.
Well, yeah, because the qualifying, yes, was very good. I was a bit disappointed after the red flag, but 7th was very, very good for morale in the team. We went very well this morning. I was very happy with the balance of the car. Made a brilliant start. Was basically going to be second or third around the first corner, and then obviously it's Eddie again who's ruined it for me.
What can I say? Better luck next time, Johnny.
Yeah, absolutely.
Lap 12 in Australia, 6 retirees. Damon Hill, before the race even started, when his throttle disconnected itself electronically. Jacques Villeneuve had a coming together with Eddie Irvine and Johnny Herbert at the start of the race, so out they go. Jos Verstappen did a lot of aviating, flew over the curb in the gravel trap, but not into the wall, and as far as I know is perfectly all right. And Ralf Schumacher has retired from his first Grand Prix, but his brother is going strong, and even stronger, his countryman from Germany, Heinz-Harald Frentzen, looking good.
Yes, Schumacher is definitely not going to be biding his time back there in third place. He will know that Villeneuve is out of the race. He knows his biggest competitor for the World Championship in reality is Villeneuve. And further to that, he's got his old rival, Heinz-Harald Frentzen, up there in front. Frentzen is pulling away at virtually a second a lap, and he's got to just keep his concentration somehow. I wasn't in the privileged position in a Grand Prix car, but many times in a sports car I was out in front and pulling away. And I used to play games and just see how consistent I could be to touch curbs every lap and just to focus on myself. Otherwise it's too easy to miss a braking point or to back off. Your tyres just lose a bit of temperature and suddenly you can be in the wall. So that's what Frenzen's got to do out there right now. But there's an interesting scrap going on between Coulthard and Schumacher that could be the feature of the race. The Benettons are going better in the race than they've looked all weekend, but they're not in a position to threaten anybody yet.
22 started, 16 are still running on lap 13 with the man you're looking at, Heinz-Harald Frentzen from Germany, leading his first Grand Prix in the Williams Renault. 17 seconds ahead of the battle between Coulthard and Schumacher, McLaren and Ferrari. Hakkinen in the second, McLaren is 7 seconds behind Schumacher, dropping back. So I don't know whether he has a problem, but anyway, Coulthard has proved to be the faster of the two McLaren drivers all through the pre-sessions and practice. And there you can see the Benetton, and behind Hakkinen is Alesi, and it's a very close battle because Alesi is in 5th place, Berger is in 5th position, Parnis is in 7th place. Now coming towards us, here is the battle. Hakkinen, followed by Alesi, Benetton, Berger, Benetton, 7th position, Parnis in the cross. So, Frentzen out on his own. A battle, but not a terribly hectic one, between Coulthard and Schumacher, and this battle, which is getting more and more hectic. And the difference is that that man in the blue crossed, Olivier Parnis, who does not always react well to pressure, is on the different make of tyre from the cars in front of him.
Yes, I think Olivier's done his usual very good job, actually, but threatened all weekend until final qualifying, where he failed to put up the lap time he should have been doing. Now he's driving a good, strong race. He could be in a very good position, because I think the Bridgestones are a little bit harder. I think they could last a little bit better through each stint. He may even be on a one-stop race.
Hakkinen in the silver McLaren Mercedes-Benz engine. Behind him, the two Renault-powered V10 Benettons of Alesi and Berger. And there's Diniz going off. Whoa! He caught that beautifully. Just went over the curve, got his wheels on the grass, and that's where all resistance to grip goes, but he caught it beautifully and kept the car going.
Well, there's far more grip on the black stuff than the green stuff, but that's turn 5. He used the edge of the gravel trap just to bring the car straight, but it's been so hot and dry here that actually there's a reasonable amount of grip on that grass, and if you just stick with the program, you can recover the car. You have to never give up.
There's a new team in Grand Prix racing. Sadly, the Lolas didn't qualify. Salseri, his Brazilian compatriot, but in the two Stewart cars, Rubens Barrichello, who has been with Jordan for the whole of his Grand Prix career until this year, is in 9th position, 40 seconds behind the leader, but only 2.7 seconds behind Nicola Larini, and in 11th place it's Jan Magnussen. Now, so very quickly, while you watch the battle for 4th position, and there is Mika Hakkinen in that position. Behind him, Alesi 5th, Berger 6th, Parnis 7th, Larini in the sole remaining Sauber Petronas is in 8th position, 2.5 seconds ahead of Ruben Barrichello Stewart. And that is Fisichella spinning out. Fisichella trying to get past Barrichello, and all he does is drive himself out of the race. Giancarlo Fisichella, and on goes the McLaren of Mika Hakkinen. Here's a replay.
Well, he's got out of shape before he's ever arrived. He's panicked. He's decided he's going to have a go, and it actually wasn't quite ready. And all of a sudden he's thought, oh no, I've gone in too deep, I've committed myself, I'm not going to make it, and he's lost it. Dare I say, they should have had a more experienced driver in the car.
And who better than you, Martin Brundle, who drove for Jordan last year and was hoping for that seat this year. Never mind, you're able to talk about that. Giancarlo Fisichella, like Ralf Schumacher, is inexperienced. Fisichella's had 8 Grand Prix drives before this one. Ralf Schumacher had none. And so now it looks as though both Jordans are out of the race. And as a result of that, Jan Magnussen, as a result of that, Jan Magnussen has moved up to 10th position. So the Stewarts in their first Grand Prix are currently 9th and 10th. But what we haven't done yet, Martin, and we're on lap 15 now out of 58, is to take a stab at when they might be coming in to change tyres.
Well, I think the two stoppers are going to be coming in around lap 18, something like that, sort of 18 through 20. If there were any 3 stoppers in the race, they would have been doing that by now. But I think given the cooler temperatures that we've seen all day, the 3 stops were more or less out anyway, but let's wait and see.
Do you think at this stage of the race, Heinz-Harald Frentzen will be saying to himself, just keep going, Heinz, and you've got it in the bag, or will he be concentrating so hard that all thoughts like that don't even enter his head?
Well, I think he just levelled out on his lap times. In fact, Coulthard and Schumacher just started to match his times. Somebody's given him a hurry up, because he's just logged another second off of that to a 1:31.9 for a new lap record and fastest lap of the race by some margin. He has to keep, there's a long way to go in this motor race, and never underestimate Schumacher. And those McLarens look very strong in race trim.
7 retirees, one of them, Eddie Irvine, is with Louise Goodman.
Eddie, it was all happening
slows me down, and the two of us touched, and I got a damaged the suspension, I got a puncture out on me.
Well, it was a straight sandwich job, or that's what it looked like from above. Now, Frentzen is catching the tail enders. Let's have a look, because that's Katayama in front of him. Katayama in the Minardi Heart. The Japanese drivers move to the Italian team, and coming towards us now. There is Katayama, there is Kakatano, and there is race leader Heinz-Harald Frentzen. So now Frentzen has got the problem, not too much of a problem from his point of view of getting past this lot.
Yes, but nonetheless, a new experience for Heinz-Harald. He's in the lead, and he's coming up behind his first back markers. They're busy watching each other, having a bit of a private battle, and he'll need to watch his step, but he'll need to be positive with them. You can't be half-hearted. He's got to pick his moment and be really positive and let them be sure he's there.
Frentzen coming up to lap. Now there is Katayama, behind him Nakano, and behind Nakano is...
I think they could well bring Heinz-Harald in, Murray, because he's behind these three cars. They may choose to stop him a little early rather than risk having to overtake these cars. So we notice they're getting the tyres out into the pit lane now. I wonder if they might bring him in directly. That would be a smart team move.
The man he's taking now is Jarno Trulli in the... No, sorry, it's Pedro Diniz. Pedro Diniz in the remaining arrows. So he is in 15th position, Diniz. So now Heinz-Harald Frentzen is going for Nakano and into the pit lane. Now this is... Watch for the white line. When he gets to that, he's got to operate the speed limiter. 75 miles an hour. Waiting to greet him is James Allen.
Thank you, Murray. Yes, 80 kilometres an hour. Heinz-Harald Frentzen, a little bit of a lock over the right front into the pit stop position. A set of scrub tyres ready to go on again. Clockwork precision from the Williams team. All the fuel is going in. A dangerous moment. The fuel hose is off. The car is safe. Frentzen drops the clutch, and not a bad stop at all by the Williams team. He's back in the race.
He's back in the race, he's back on the road as the McLaren comes through. And you can see there is Frentzen. Coulthard has gone through into the lead. Schumacher has gone through into second place. Heinz-Harald Frentzen has rejoined in third position ahead of Mika Hakkinen, who is pursued by Lacey and Berger. So race order, lap 19, Coulthard, Schumacher, Frentzen, Hakkinen, Lacey, Berger. And we are on lap 19 out of 58 in the Australian Grand Prix.
Welcome back to the Qantas Australian Grand Prix here in Melbourne. Well, after 19 laps, David Coulthard now takes the lead after Frentzen's pit stop. Michael Schumacher in second, Hakkinen in fourth, Lacey fifth, and Gerhard Berger in sixth position. Well, quite a good pit stop by the Williams team there, nothing to lose. Good time to bring him in. He was being held up behind traffic. Patrick Head would have taken the decision to bring him in, get that pit stop out of the way and get him out. All right, let's go back to Murray Walker and Martin Bumble.
David Coulthard, there he is leading, but of course has yet to make a stop. Close up behind him, you'll see the Ferrari in a moment. You just saw a flash of it there. Michael Schumacher as they make their way up towards turn 6, and in third position after his stop is Heinz-Harald Frentzen, and he's gaining on Michael Schumacher. The Williams, I said earlier on, was the class of the field, and Heinz-Harald Frentzen is proving it by coming out of the pit lane on cars that have been heated up in the blankets, and he's catching the Ferrari and the McLaren of David Coulthard. The gap at the present moment is 10 seconds. Mika Hakkinen is in fourth position. Jorna Lacey and Gerhard Berger are having a terrific battle for fifth position. There's less than a second between them, the two Benettons. Nicola Larini is in seventh position, and in eighth place, I say again, Rubens Barrichello on the debut drive for the Stewart team, ahead of Parnis, Salo and his teammate Jan Magnussen.
Great performance from Rubens in the new car. He's lapping around a second a lap off of the leader's pace only. That's a stunning debut performance for that team. But Coulthard's under a lot of pressure. Schumacher's keeping him very, very honest, but they're only about 10 seconds ahead of Heinz-Harald Frentzen. If they can now stretch this to 27 laps, 28 laps, obviously and clearly they're on a one-stop strategy. So Heinz-Harald will have to pass them, but he'll do that during their first pit stop.
And this is the battle for fourth position. Mika Häkkinen, Jean Alesi, Gerhard Berger, McLaren, Benetton. There is the Austrian. Ahead of him is the Frenchman. Ahead of him is the Finnish driver, Mika Häkkinen. It's all action from fourth to sixth places, and it's all action ahead too, because Schumacher is keeping Coulthard honest, and Frentzen is keeping Schumacher, his countryman, honest. Frentzen is catching Schumacher at the rate at the present moment of about 0.3 of a second a lap. Not much, but on the next lap it'll probably come down, and he's got a big cushion, of course, because he's got a clear track in front of him. He's on new tyres, that 9 or 10 second gap between him and Schumacher, and both Coulthard and Schumacher have still got to come in for their first stops. Feasible, do you think, Martin, that they might be having less stops than Frentzen?
I think it's looking fairly positive. I don't understand, if they were on a two-stop strategy, why they would go so long on the first stop. So looking at the times that the Ferrari and the McLarens did this morning, they weren't sparkling in the warm-up, and they could well have been trying one-stop fuel. And I think the Benettons are in the same position as well. So I'm really expecting all of those three to take it up to 25, 27 laps before coming in. That's going to let Frentzen through. What Frentzen's got to do then is push hard to give himself enough margin to make his extra stop. And this is not a particularly fast pit lane and easy pit lane to do that in.
But now you can see how closely matched the top cars and drivers are in Formula One. Mika Häkkinen in a totally different car with a totally different engine from the two cars and drivers that are following him, Jean Alesi, and there is Gerhard Berger. But they're matching each other wheel turn for wheel turn, because it's terribly difficult to find a way to get past.
Well, it is, because the cars have such phenomenal performance, even though there are 5 clear areas here where you come from high speed and brake down to a medium or low speed corner. But the cars are so incredible under braking, and you brake so late, maybe 90 metres before a corner, that to make a complete car link on another driver, as you saw Fisichella try to do, is very, very difficult, and it can often end up in tears.
Well, now, these three are staying out. Frentzen has been in for a tyre stop. Parnis has been in for a tyre stop, as has Barrichello. We haven't seen that, but Barrichello's been in. So has Casalo. We did see that. Jan Magnussen has been in the Stewart. And there is David Coulthard taking a rip-off of his visor, and Schumacher waving his arms, and they're closing up behind Pedro Diniz. There could be a change here.
Well, I don't know what the arm waving was about. Was it, if they've lost radio contact with the pits, that is one established signal to cry for some tyres. I want some tyres, bring me in. It could have been a rip-off of the visor, or they could have been moaning at Pedro Diniz for not letting them through. Let's find out.
Well, I'll take 2 guesses about which it was, and I suspect it's the latter. Here we are, here's a replay. Let's see. Out of the last corner comes Michael Schumacher with Mika Häkkinen in front. You're right, Martin.
I think it's tyres. I think he's saying, what are you doing? Get me in the pit. I need some tyres. But why isn't he on the radio? Maybe lost radio contact is not that unusual. Or maybe he's asking the stewards on the start-finish line to black or blue flag this guy and get him out of the way. I think that's what it was. They are asking, why are the blue flags not out more?
And you're looking ahead at Mika Häkkinen, who is being held up by Pedro Diniz. Now that shows you how, there he goes past, that shows you actually how much grunt the engine has got. The Yamaha engine, actually Diniz, Schumacher passed now, as you see, but actually Diniz at one point yesterday had got the fastest car on the track in terms of top speed. So there's not a lot of work to do there. The Yamaha engine is developing another 40 horsepower compared with last year. The leaders cross the line to complete their 24th lap. Coulthard and Schumacher together.
Okay, I think I've answered my own question. I think they were gesticulating to the stewards get the blue flags. There is a procedure. If you pass more than 3 waved blue flags, you get pulled in the pits for a stop-and-go penalty. And I think they were asking, what are you doing? Why haven't you done that? Because neither of them have been in the pits for tyres. Neither of those two teams have got tyres out in the pit lane, so we can assume they're one stopping. What they were unhappy about is they know they've got to make haste on Frentzen to win this motor race. They know now that Frentzen's making one more stop than them. The strategy is clear, and they don't want to lose 3 or 4 seconds, or maybe even more, following a back marker. They know if they can get in front of Frentzen, he'll have a job to pass them, even though he's on lower fuel, fresher tyres, and maybe a faster car.
And the news from the front is that Frentzen is now only 5.7 seconds behind Coulthard and Schumacher, and when he came out of the pits, he was 10 seconds behind. A reminder about the retirements: Damon Hill out before the race started. Villeneuve had a coming together with Eddie Irvine and Johnny Herbert, all 3 retired at the start. Verstappen is out, Ralf Schumacher is out, Giancarlo Fisichella spun out, so both the Jordans are out. A rotten race for Jordan, who are looking for points and success this year, because although they've got the Peugeot engine, which Prost has got an exclusive on next year, they have been told that if they do well in the first half of the season, they've got a sporting chance of retaining him for next year.
Yes, the pressure is on for Jordan Peugeot. Their new car is extremely good. I was out on the track watching it on Friday, and it looked great, and I have to say both their drivers have a lot of potential. They're going to go well, but the pressure is on both with regards to the engine and, of course, the key sponsorship. So they will be going home with a long flight tonight very unhappily.
Now, I understand some of you have been phoning in to complain that there are no pit stop times on the graphics. If you're complaining, you can imagine how I feel, because I can't see some of the pit stops in terms of time, and I would dearly like to know just as much as you would, because it's all part of the race. But what you haven't got, you can't give. My apologies. Meantime, Coulthard leads, Schumacher is second, Frentzen is in third position, and there is David Coulthard. And Frentzen now is 7.9 seconds behind Coulthard, who is definitely lapping quicker. David Coulthard's going quicker than Frentzen, pulling away.
Coulthard and Schumacher lost 4 seconds, 5 seconds past the nears. I suspect Frentzen's just experienced a similar problem, so they've extended the gap. Heinz Harald has got to get on with it. He hasn't actually won it yet, but if he puts in a strong stint, he's got it in the bag, but he mustn't back off.
Coming up to Katayama, who is in 11th place in the Minardi Heart. It's a new car and a new team to the Japanese driver. He moves over, and Coulthard locks up, just scrambled through. Now, this could be an opportunity for David Coulthard to pull away a bit if Katayama holds up Schumacher.
Well, yes, his front tyres are again going to feel like a 50-pence piece now. There's rubber off it, it's going to be out of balance, and it's got a flat spot on it. But luckily for David, he can't be more than 2 or 3 laps away from a pit stop, so he'll be parting with that problem to his mechanics anytime soon.
Lap 27, race order. David Coulthard leads by just under a second. You can see the battle. Frentzen is 7.8 seconds behind them. Third place. He's made a pit stop. They haven't. Hakkinen is fourth, 10 seconds behind the leader, 2.2 seconds behind Frentzen in third place. Alesi and Berger are battling for 5th position, and they're 2.5 seconds behind Hakkinen. Larini is 7th, excellent drive in the Sauber Petronas. He could still end up in the points. Olivier Panis is in 8th position. Barrichello is in 9th place in the Stewart. 10th is Magnussen. So both the Stewarts are in the points. And in fact, Jan Magnussen is about to be caught and lapped by David Coulthard. Coming towards us, the white with the blue tartan stripes on its car, the...
Yes, it's not close enough. But will Jan move out of the way? Sort of.
Well, that one actually is Barrichello being lapped by David Coulthard, race leader, and now Michael Schumacher, Rubens Barrichello in 9th place. So Magnussen has already been lapped, and the flying men at the front from Scotland, from Twynham in Scotland, David Coulthard, who had a bit of a torrid season with McLaren last year. It was a new team and a new car, and it wasn't the best of cars either. But he buckled down and got the job done with Mika Häkkinen. And this year, he's got the year's experience of the team behind him. A much better motor car with a brand new Mercedes-Benz engine, which I say again is actually designed and built by the Ilmore concern of Brixworth in England, and he's making the very most of it.
David's driving beautifully. He's under pressure from the best driver in the world and handling it very, very well. And he could well be our British star this year. But he's been talking of, after an hour in the car, of losing feeling in his right leg and therefore his right foot. And that can be a problem, especially on a hard-braking circuit like this. He could well start suffering towards the end. But usually the adrenaline and mind over matter can overcome that. But I remember having to pull out of a race once myself because the cockpit was such that you lost all feeling in your legs.
The reason for that, incidentally, is that the McLaren seating position is much lower than it was last year. If you could see through the side of the car, you'd see that Coulthard was almost lying down with his feet stretched out in front of him to operate the pedals, and his chin is literally forced into his chest. And he was, as Martin says, suffering pins and needles at best and cramp at worst earlier in the testing sessions.
Yes, it is an unusual driving position, and more the drivers are laying down now. It's described as, by David himself, as laying in the bath with your feet on the taps, and that's a pretty good description. But it can be something as simple as a new overall manufacture and different seams. You fit that car so tightly that even seams on your ovals or a small high spot in your seat presses a nerve ending, and after a period of time it begins to show through.
Right, watch the leaders. Here's a review. 15 cars left, and those retirements I have already told you about. Frentzen has been in to have his tyre stop, but the lead has been stabilised at about 8 seconds between Coulthard and Schumacher, and then 8 seconds behind is Frentzen. Fourth is Häkkinen, a further 2.5 seconds back. Fifth is Alesi, sixth is Berger. There's now 1.4 seconds between them. Alesi is pulling away. Parnis in the Prost is seventh, quite a long way ahead of Lorini's Sauber. Barrichello has been lapped, as has Magnussen.
And a new fastest lap for David Coulthard. 1:31.4, fastest lap of the race. He is driving a great stint. He's low on fuel now. He's about to come in for tyres, so we know the car is very light. Frentzen is not having a good stint. He's not made the most of his fresher tyres, and he really hasn't closed the gap. He's now 9.2 seconds behind, and this is absolutely critical. Of course, David is going to come up behind Frentzen after his one and only stop, but Heinz Harald has one more stop to do. So I think this is a very significant part of the race. And Schumacher is faster than Frentzen too.
And Prost, Parnis has had a pit stop. Coulthard has just put up a new fastest lap and therefore a new record lap. 1:31.4 compared with Villeneuve's 1:33.4 last year. So that's 2 seconds faster than last year. We're over half distance now, so there's little doubt about the fact that the McLaren and the Ferrari are just on a one-stop strategy, and there's little doubt either that Frentzen is on a two-stop strategy, and he'll have to pull his socks up because the gap now is back to what it was when he came out of the pits.
Yeah, I mean, that's a fabulous lap time from David, but the guy who signs his checks, Ron Dennis, is going to be saying, what are you doing in the 31s suddenly when you were 32s and 33s immediately before that? He's obviously got a second wind, and off he goes.
David Coulthard, look back, he's inching out a gap over Michael Schumacher. 1.6 seconds is the lead now, and the Ferrari people are getting ready in the pits as in comes the Benetton of Gerhard Berger from 6th position. He was 1.1 seconds behind Alesi on the track.
Yeah, it seems a reasonable stop. New tyres there, sticker tyres. Tyres are not as difficult as they were before. There's a lot of fuel going in there. That, obviously, at one stop, you do have to put a lot of fuel in. I suspect there's a bit of cat and mouse going on between McLaren and Ferrari right now. They would have started the race with more than enough fuel to go half distance so that they could have a shorter fuel stop, so that the fuel and the tyres will take about the same time for Coulthard and Schumacher, and they won't. They'll want to bring Schumacher in if they can before Coulthard, so that he can get out and get in front. But they really want to synchronise their pit stops, and I suspect they're watching each other's pit boards rather closely at the moment.
No pit stop time graphic for Gerhard Berger. Not guilty, but you can see that Coulthard is still that distance ahead of Michael Schumacher, who comes into the pits now. Now, if Coulthard has got anything left, now's the time to produce it. Schumacher locks up his left front. James Allen is in the pits.
Michael Schumacher coming an enormous amount of dirt on the front of his helmet. Great dust pouring off the wheels as the mechanics remove those tyres. Now Schumacher, of course, is using the harder tyres. Behind Schumacher, we've got Berger coming in any second now. Lacey coming in any second now. But I think Schumacher will be clear by then. So the hard-tyred Ferrari goes back out. Can he do anything about David Coulthard? No indication yet of McLaren about to make a stop.
Wouldn't you like to know how long Schumacher's stop was? Because so was I. So would I.
They've got a stopwatch at home. They can ring us back and tell us the time. But anyway, we've got some more exciting pit stops coming up. And that was a good one from Schuey. The refueling was short, so I would think they were pretty satisfied with that. But that's going to put Frentzen back into the lead anytime soon. But I think they've done enough for Schumacher to keep him in with a realistic chance of at least pressurising Frentzen.
Coulthard, who is in the lead, has not stopped. Frentzen is now up to second. He has stopped. Hakkinen has moved up to third and has not stopped. Lacey has been in and Schumacher has been in. So the question now is going to be, how long will David Coulthard take to come in? How long will he stop when he does? The lead could change.
This is bad news for Michael now. This outlap is critical to getting in front of Coulthard. There's more time lost on your out and in lap.
Off goes Nakano. That was Nakano being pressured. I'll move over and let you pass, Michael, but you don't have to move over as much as that, Shinji.
Well, that was critical. He has to get a good outlap to get his car in front of Coulthard, and he caught some traffic, so that's bad news. David's got some clear track. He can have a good in-lap, and
now David will almost certainly be coming in this lap because he is on more worn tyres than Michael Schumacher now, and the closer he can come into the German stop, the better things will be for him. And here is a replay of Shinji Nakano going off in the frost. He was in the 13th place, battling against Jarno Trulli in 12th position. That's an excellent drive because the young Italian, the ex-multiple world kart champion, is in his first Grand Prix after only 2 seasons in single-seaters. He's a man of the future to watch with a vengeance, and he's running in 12th position. Race order lap 33 as you watch race leader David Coulthard coming in, we think, on this lap. Coulthard leads Frentzen by 12.5 seconds, so there will almost certainly be a lead change, and we'll know the answer very soon, because in comes David Coulthard. Let's get down to James Allen, good and early for this one. James.
Thank you very much, Murray. Yes, David Coulthard coming down the pit lane, the speed limiter, 80 kilometres an hour. Now the McLaren team, they haven't been able to Grand Prix for quite a long time. They don't want to mess this one up. They've always been very good at pit stops. You notice these Flash Gordon type helmets the pit crew are wearing, very stylish. Now David Coulthard, the time ticking away, a beautiful stop by McLaren. Meanwhile, I must just tell you that the Lacey has completely ignored the signals to come in 3 or 4 times. The mechanics are literally standing on the wall, shaking their fists at him with in arrows. He's ignored 3 arrows saying, come into the pit. I have no idea what Jean Lacey thinks he's doing.
Well, mercurial is the word to use for a Lacey, and he's proving it today, and mercurial is the word to use for Heinz-Harald Frentzen, because he's not only gone into the lead with Hakkinen up into 2nd place and a Lacey into 3rd, and Coulthard that you're looking at down to 4th, but Frentzen is going for it now. He's got the message, fastest lap of the race, 1 minute 30.8.
I wouldn't be surprised he hasn't just had a hurry up from the pits, because he just wasn't lapping fast enough to justify his stops. Now he's suddenly moved into the 130s from doing sort of 30, late 31s and early 32s. So it's very strange. I think it's typical for Heinz. First time he's led a Grand Prix, how hard do you push? How do you pace yourself? And he was getting it wrong, and he lost most of that stint to take advantage. I think the team may have spoken to him, or he suddenly realised for himself.
Pit lane time information. David Coulthard, I can't give you his time, but I can tell you that he was 1.4 seconds faster than Michael Schumacher, and that could make all the difference. And that was the pit lane, not just the pit stop. Now here's Hakkinen. James Allen will be there, I trust.
Indeed I am, Murray. Mika Hakkinen, the teammate of David Coulthard. Another slick-looking pit stop from the McLaren.